So XRP currently finds itself within this corrective move to the downside. And you can also see that we are sandwiched in between the 200 and the 50 EMA, where we are finding support at the 200 EMA, but we are getting rejected at the 50 EMA. And so it will be interesting to see if we see that breakout to the upside, and that will be a bullish signal. Now, I did mention in my previous video how I was looking at for a deeper move to the downside where we tapped into this region between $1.95 to $2.10. And as you can see, we didn't tap into that region. Now, whether that's because we have a bigger corrective move that's playing out right now, made up of a double XY structure, where, for example, this would be the W wave, X wave, and the Y wave, where that Y wave would then tap into this region, or if we ended up actually bottoming out at this level, and that level sits at $2.14, and we see that continuation to the upside where we then breach past this local top, which sits at $2.33. Now, for this to happen, then what we need is for this corrective move to have met the minimum requirement, which is a 23.6% retracement of this wave structure. So what I'll do very quickly is bring in the fib tool and bring that to over here. And so you can see that the 23.6% retracement level, this is at $2.22, and we ended up exceeding that level where we got rejected at this level here. And so, yeah, we still need some further confirmation as to whether or not we are still slightly bearish or we are bullish. And so what I'll do is check to see what has taken place over here. And here it looks like we had a 5-wave move that played out. So what I'll do is I'll bring in the fib tool and bring this to the right position, and you can see that we ended up exceeding the 1.618 level. And so it looks like we had a 5-wave move where this was the wave 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we had this corrective move that played out, which is a 50 to 88.2% retracement of this wave structure. So if I bring in the fib tool and bring that to over here, so you can see that we tapped into that range between $2.17 to $2.23. And within this corrective move, it looks like we had a WXY structure that formed, where this is the W wave, X wave, and the Y wave. So what I do is check to see if this Y wave met the typical requirements. So if I bring this to the right position, so you can see that XRP would have reached anywhere between $2.19.23 to $2.20.93. And here we ended up reaching $2.19.6. And since this move, we are seeing this move play out where we got rejected at the 50 EMA. So what I'll do is I'll remove this now and check to see what's taking place over here. So if I go in the 5-minute chart, and yeah, straight away I can see that this move is made up of corrective moves, where it looks like we had a WXY structure, with this being a W wave, this being an X wave, and we had the Y wave that played out. And so again, what I'll do is check to see if this Y wave met the typical requirements. And we bottomed out at $2.20.67. And so we were looking at for a move to reach, or for XRP to reach anywhere between $2.23.61 to $2.24.31. And we actually failed to tap into that region. But the minimum requirement was met, which is the 0.618 level at $2.22.48. And so what I do is check to see what's taken place within this Y wave. And yeah, it looks like within this Y wave, we had a WXY structure, with this being a W wave, this being an X wave, and this being a Y wave. So using the fib tool once again, and that Y wave would have reached anywhere between $2.23.18 to $2.23.71, and so it's possible that this structure is now complete, despite us not tapping into this region here. And we have this corrective move that's playing out right now, which would be a 50 to 88.2% retracement of this wave structure. So if I remove this fib tool and check to see if this has met the typical requirements. So if I remove this, and here you can see that we have met those typical ranges between 50 and 0.882, where we reached anywhere between $2.20 to $2.21. And within this move here, it looks like we had a WXY structure that formed also. So if I go in the minute chart and check to see if this Y wave met the typical requirements. And so, yeah, we just about extended beyond the 1.226 level. However, we failed to reach the 1.618 level, which tells me that this move to the downside is not an impulsive move. And so it's possible that this move is now complete. And we have the essentially a bigger Y wave that's playing out right now. And so if I zoom out, essentially what could be taking place right now is a bigger WXY structure, with this being a W wave, this being an X wave, and we could potentially be within this Y wave right now. So if I go on the 5-minute chart, what I'll do is I'll set out the Y wave target, which would be a 1 to 1.226 retracement of the W wave. And so if I bring in the fib tool, and bring this to over here. So the next move that I'm looking at for right now is for XRP to reach anywhere between $2.24.95 to $2.25.86 to complete that Y wave. And of course, the minimum requirement is the 0.618 level at $2.23.48. But yeah, I am looking at for that bigger move to the upside. Now, if I go in the 4-hour chart, it is interesting because we are within the oversold conditions. And so I am looking at for the bulls to regain control of the market. Now, whether or not that falls in line with what I'm looking at for, where we tap into this range here, only time will tell, really. And it will be interesting to see if we have a bigger WXY structure that's forming, where we continue to see high highs, or this is just a corrective move before we see a further push to the downside. Of course, this is something I'm going to be tracking over the next few days, and I'll be keeping you guys updated. And so, yeah, that's just my update on XRP, and hopefully you found it useful. Yeah, if you did, then feel free to hit that like button, and if you're new, feel free to subscribe. Take it easy, people. Peace.